Hello and welcome to an equestrian episode of the Drywall Podcast. I am your host, once again, Nick Harmon. With us today, Faith Baylis of Fine Touch Taping out of Peterborough, Ontario, joins us as the youngest finisher ever to grace the microphone of the Drywall Podcast. Faith is an ambitious 20-year-old who wasn't satisfied working for minimum wage. She talks about her love for horses, her experience leaving high school early, and how an early seed her and her boyfriend Tyler planted long ago may have turned into much, much more.
The reason I brought up Tyler is because after I had helped with that repair, I went to Ty and I was like, I think we should start a business and we should do repair work and we should cover up nicotine stains. And we had no idea what we were doing. We didn't know what we were talking about. We had this whole plan and I never went forward with that. But after I got into it for real, I always found that really crazy that both of us had at one time thought of this whole plan that we were going to get into this, kind of left it on the back of our minds and never thought of it again. And we ended up doing that exact thing.
Yeah. Faith is just an absolute pleasure to talk to. We also discuss how she found the trade and how an unlikely acquaintance of her mother's became her first mentor. We also discuss tools and some social media stuff. It's all packed into this amazing 93rd episode. The Drywall Podcast is brought to you today by Fresco Harmony, making walls better since 2004. It's hard to believe it's been 20 years since I first colored joint compound. It's pretty crazy. And also there's some cool stuff coming up, including Fresco Harmony, which is a project in Surrey, British Columbia, where a bunch of Columbia ambassadors are going to get together and finish out a house in Surrey, British Columbia, but there may also be some Fresco Harmony on that project as well. Also, and not limited to, we have a training coming up in CSR in Toronto, June 6th and 7th. We're going to be at their Concord location, but we're also going to be at their Barrie location. Stay tuned for more details on that. I think we're going to be up there like Thursday and Friday. We're going to hang out all day. You can pop in when you want, make a sample. It's going to be awesome. Guests of the Drywall Podcast will receive a sweet swag bucket from our friends at CSR just for coming onto the show. Have a hankering to tell your story? I'd like to hear it. We'd like to hear it. Reach out to me directly at info@frescoharmony.com. Let's chat. But for now, Faith Baylis Fine Touch Taping out of Peterborough, Ontario, on the 93rd episode of the Drywall Podcast. Let's get into it. We have Faith Baylis from Peterborough, Ontario. Fine Touch Taping with us on the Drywall Podcast today.
Hello. Welcome. Happy to be here.
I just talked with Sean Ramsden, Brawley's Dad Construction, who also runs a podcast this morning. And he was like, who are you interviewing this morning? Because we're getting ready for the Surrey job. And I was like, oh, Faith, she's really cool. Yeah, she said she knew you. And he was like, blah, blah, blah. She called me. She said she was really apologetic because maybe you were too scared to do his podcast. But you know,
yeah.
Dude, Faith, he's bootlegged so many people from my podcast. I don't even care. Yeah.
He said even if it doesn't work out on his podcast, you can come on mine and we'll talk shit about his.
There you go. There you go. So we can talk smack about Sean. We can talk smack about anybody that you want. It doesn't matter. Oh,
no, Sean's a good guy. He's been nothing but kind to me.
Yeah, he's one of those connectors. I call them connectors, like people that like they're about community, they're about connecting people.
100%. You can see that in everything he does. So,
and I told him that how I sold Faith, because I was like, she was pretty nervous too. And I didn't know you from Adam. I was like, oh, this is interesting. A new woman in construction. Let's I want to, not in just construction, but in drywall, I want to find more women in construction in drywall because you guys are rare. So like, I want to hear not only all drywall people's stories, but particularly women interest me because it's tough for a woman in construction. It's tough for a woman in drywall. It's interesting to me why you chose this career. Maybe there were some other paths you could have gone. Another fun fact about Faith, she is the youngest interviewee on the Drywall Podcast to date, and May will be 2 years, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's crazy.
A very young 20 years of age. But I told Sean that how I got you was that I told you, I was like, it's very important that you guys, women, come on to the podcast and tell and talk about your story so that hopefully we can give other women permission to not only tell their story, but you inspire other women to and young people to get into the trade. Or if they're nervous about coming into the trade or something, we're going to dig into your story and figure out how you did it and why you did it. And I think that's important. And I think that was, and you told me that was the turning point for you. You're like, you know what? I'm going to do it because it's bigger than me.
Yeah, no, I agree that it's really important. It's something that from my own experience has really pushed me to keep moving forward. As much as I love what I do, there are hard days that it's just, you're like, can I really do this? Do I really want to pursue this as a career for forever till it breaks me? And then, you have this community of people who are there to support you and like hype you up. And I had Steph from Teak Interiors reach out to me one day and she's like, you're killing it. Like, keep doing that and keep doing a good job. And that was one of the bad days that I had come home, and that's the message I received. And I was like totally lifted. And so I think it's important that we keep that community and keep the inspiration from other people.
Yeah. And Teak does that too. She's kind of a connector, very open, very cool with everybody. We've had some great women on the program.
Everybody that I've met and talked to, like, just amazing people. I feel like we're all very similar in the way that we think and the parts of life that we appreciate. So it's really cool to kind of find your people, especially as like a young adult becoming an adult. I didn't see a lot of communities like that in adult groups. Like, there's not a lot, unless you're in a book club, like, there's not, or I'm not a very sporty person. I'm not athletic. So unless you're on a sports team, like, there's not that community of people in very many places. And it's just a wonderful thing to find that in something that I also have so much passion and love for, that also makes me money. So it's a surreal and really cool thing.
Cool. And you're in Canada, especially, I'm also, as a product manufacturer and a podcast person and an American, I'm trying to illuminate our friends to the north. This whole, vast expanse of space called Canada that has provinces and beautiful people living in it that do drywall. You guys are not only phenomenal drywall finishers, but you're very prominent on social media. So I feel like the drywall community has illuminated Canada, so to speak. It's blurred that line between, like, much more so than maybe Mexico, and there could be a language barrier there too, which aids, but like much more so than maybe other things. I don't know, but it's amazing how much Canadian influence there is. And I don't discriminate. It's like I see people on social media and I pick people out based on like, oh, that's interesting. I'll reach out to them. And not everybody wants to come on the podcast, but that's been pretty cool. So not only is it community, but it's also like a heavy Canadian influence, which has been really cool. Um, where are we going to go from here? That's it. We're over. Really good interview. No, we've got Faith. There's not too much background to dig into because if we go back 3 years, you're only 17 years old. You're graduating high school. Let's sort of start there. Did you have an affinity for construction, the trades? I assume you're first generation drywall finisher.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you're in high school, you're getting ready to graduate. Maybe everybody's telling you you need to go to college. Face like, screw all you guys. I want to go into construction. How did you choose drywall?
So I actually didn't graduate high school. I
Beautiful.
was a grade 10 dropout.
Okay.
I tried to go back. I went to a school called Pace, and that didn't last very long. It gave me a little bit more freedom, but I still wasn't committed to the work. I always kind of had the mindset of this isn't getting me anywhere. This isn't paying me. Like, what am I doing in school? I didn't really have a career that I had chosen where I wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer and go to college or university for something specific. If anything, I wanted to be a horse trainer for the majority of my life.
Nice. Why horses?
My Nana had a farm when I was younger. So
Okay.
I rode my first horse at 3.
Oh, wow.
And then I went every year to a summer camp. And every year I went longer. My first year I went for a week, and then it was 2 weeks. And then it ended up being a month that I'd go every summer, where I had the experience of learning and riding horses every day. I did a rodeo camp thing, and I just really connected to all of that. It being out in nature, connecting with an animal, it's a really great experience, and I don't think you can find that many places.
Right. I grew up on a horse farm. We raised
really?
Egyptian and Arabian horses. Yeah.
Wow, that is very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. When you grow up with horses, it's not a big deal. You don't really think about it, but they are such amazing animals.
They are. They really are.
Yeah.
So that's still kind of the dream. I'd still like to get there, but I think I need a lot more money before I'm buying a few horses and a big ranch and doing all that. So
well, yeah, but you could have went and worked on a ranch. You could have done ranching or worked and done there's lots of things you could do with horses, right?
Yeah, I could have. And actually, last summer I did work a little bit on a ranch over weekends that I had off.
Okay.
And they actually asked me the same question, like, why didn't you continue with horses if that's what you are so passionate about? And I really didn't know how to answer the question. I answered it the same way, as I never really seen money in the horses. It seemed like more of an expense, and I wasn't sure where to start or how to get there. Okay. I've always lived in town, and my mom didn't have a license, so I wasn't able to get outside of town to be on a ranch for the majority of high school and after I dropped out as well. So it wasn't something that really crossed my mind as a solid job.
Yeah.
Just kind of passed. And so when I dropped out of high school, like, I was terrified that I would never find anything that was going to pay me more than minimum wage, that I was always going to be working, flipping burgers or, serving coffee.
Okay.
And nobody really told me, like, why don't you get into the trades? You don't need school for that. Nobody said that to me. I so wish somebody had said that way sooner. So I actually it was like that weird time in COVID where it was like on and off. And I got a job at McDonald's, and then COVID kind of came back, and They fired a lot of people, and I was included in that. And for some reason that day, like, I knew that it just happened for a reason. I was like, there's something bigger here. There's something I'm meant to do that this is pushing me towards and giving me the opportunity to achieve. And a couple days later, I was sent a flyer for a trades connection program with employment planning and counseling. It's just a company that helps people. It's a government funded company that helps people find work and employment. And so they offered to pay me for 4 weeks to come into their building. And it was a little bit misleading. I thought that I was going to have to pick a trade and go in and do a bunch of hands-on work, learn the trade. But that wasn't the case. And I went in and they paid us to do some personality tests and figure out what we were looking for in a career and where our passions lie and what our hobbies are.
What was the purpose of that program? To better help people find careers?
I think it was more to get people into the trades and get them a step in the door, because they also offered to pay, I think it was minimum wage for 35 hours a week for the first 3 months of employment with whatever employer you were placed with. And it was also for local businesses. So I think it was also to help Peterborough grow in employment and help the local businesses here, which it was an amazing program if you really put the work in to get the most out of it.
Okay. Can we just get a name of that program and maybe where somebody could find it online or something?
I would suggest looking at employment planning and counseling.ca, epc.ca. I think that's the fastest way to go to it. And they should have it on their page. I think they do one every couple of months. And yeah, it's a 4-week program in class, and then another 3 weeks. I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that it's another 3 months in your job, in whatever trade that you choose.
Okay.
They asked us to research some local businesses that we'd like to get interviews with, and they'd set up an interview for us.
Okay.
So it was up to you to kind of put the work in for them to just get your foot in the door, and then you had your interview and you either got the job or you didn't. But it was really beneficial for the employer as well. It was, I think,
absolutely,
in total almost $6,000 that it was paid. And you could either take that as a full total in the beginning, and like it wasn't a weekly payment from the program, or you could do it as a weekly payment. You send in like the pay stubs and whatever, and then the program would pay the employer back.
Okay. Let's go back a little bit to, it seemed like there was some emotion that came up around the whole like dropout thing. Like the stigma around like dropping out and all of that. It seems like, you seem like a good person. It wasn't because of like, maybe you were like strung out on drugs or something like that. There's a lot of different reasons why people don't, not only graduate, but a lot of successful people don't graduate, and there's a stigma around it. I find it interesting. What was your experience around that? Did people say you were crazy? How was your influences as far as parents around that sort of thing? Were they like upset?
My mom was also a dropout, so she kind of understood where from. Now, she did go back and end up graduating, and she ended up going to college as well, and got a degree in aesthetics. But she understood where I came from, and she wasn't too hard on me about it. She told me, like, you're not going to be in school, you need to get a job.
Okay. All right. That's kind of where I was going.
My grandmother, she was very unhappy. She's been a huge influence in just being an independent, like a strong, independent woman. She runs and owns her own flooring business.
Okay.
Her and my papa started that. She's actually not even my grandmother by blood. She's my step grandmother, but she's
Okay.
always treated me as her own, and she's helped raise me. She was not happy that I was not in school, but again, she
Okay.
told me, like, if you're not going to be in school, like, you have to get a job. You can't just sit at home and do nothing. Nobody was really too hard on me about it.
Nobody was hard on you. And it just seems like a really strong choice to make at a very young age. What about like male influence, like father type influence? It seems like there's a lot of female influence. Is there a dad in the picture?
For the majority of my life, like, my childhood with my dad is all great. My mom and my dad aren't together. They had split custody, so I'd get to see
Okay.
him every weekend.
Okay.
And I don't have any terrible memories of my dad.
Sure.
In the more recent years, it's been a very rocky road with my
Okay.
dad. Currently, he is a year sober. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
the thing. I never seen that day coming. And I'm really proud of him.
Okay.
So that was, yes, totally part of the reason that I dropped out, like one of the many. I wasn't planning on dropping out. I was definitely the hardest on myself over anybody else about it, just
Yeah.
because, again, like I said, I was terrified that I would never really get anywhere. Nobody told me, like, you don't need a degree to do what you want to do, to be successful in life, that you
Right.
don't around the time that I dropped out, there was a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
I had a lot of friendships at the school that I was going to. In my head, I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna skip town. I'm gonna go live with my dad now.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a good idea. We
You
tried
did that.
that.
You did that. You went and
I
tried
did.
living with your dad. But he was
Um,
probably alcohol at that time was probably, hindering your relationship there.
yeah, for sure. So I ended up messaging my stepbrother at the time. He is a former stepbrother now.
Okay.
And at first he didn't want to answer me. Like, I asked him, like, do you think that's a good idea? Like, should I just come live with my dad? He didn't
Yeah.
answer me at first, and then he ended up getting back to me, and he said, your dad's in jail. I was like, oh, okay, so, like, that's not gonna work. Can't
Yeah.
go live there now. And at that point, that was kind of when COVID was starting.
Okay.
People weren't going to school. Like, it was all
Right.
kind of rambled and
It sucked for the high
weird.
school for the high schoolers. It sucked. Like
It did, yeah.
like
I mean, even if I
that,
did graduate, I wouldn't have had a prom or a graduation.
just
So
lame. I think about that. Like my high school was a lot of fun, and it's like, yeah, you get graduation, you get to skip school and mess off and whatever. It was a fun time for me. But those COVID kids got gypped. Like 2 years of like graduation that didn't happen. It sucked.
yeah, so that was the very very, very early, like before it really was called. And so it was kind of just like
Yeah.
wishy-washy what was going on, and school was all weird. So I missed a lot of school. And at that point I was like, okay, like I'm so behind in all my classes. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
what to do. Like,
Okay.
at this point, I haven't gone to school for almost a month. What do I
Yeah.
do now? Like, I'm gonna
Right.
fail. I'm gonna be held back.
No, you're like,
So
no,
I
you're
ended up,
like, I want to get busy. I want to get busy like with my life. Like, what
yeah,
are these 2 years of ridiculous high school classes gonna really help me that much? I get it.
yeah. And I mean, I'm glad that I didn't go back. I wish that I had dropped out sooner, because I haven't used anything from high school. Maybe a little bit of math, but
Some of that math, yeah.
that's about it. Maybe maybe some English, but even that I'm still learning. That's a hard language. So
Well, at any rate, school isn't for everybody. I definitely don't want to bash secondary education, and it does serve a purpose, and it's a very useful tool in certain instances.
Yes.
But not in all instances. I don't think everybody needs to go to college. And that's where I think the trades, especially now, are making a big impact. And this program is really interesting to me. And at the very least, you had the foresight to find it, or it found you, or you were open to the possibility. So, and thank you too for opening up about that. That seemed like it's a pivotal time in your life, a short time on this planet. When you get to be 40s, it's like, you realize how young 20 is, and that was a pivotal time for you. It's like we have these growth, changing times in our life. So going back to the employment planning and counseling, did you choose drywall out of that? Did drywall was birthed out of that program, or did you go into kind of another tentacle of construction where you found drywall? I'm curious about how this mud attracted you.
Well, it's a funny story. The program actually led me, like all of the personality tests and career tests and all that, they all led me to painter. There was no actual finisher.
We don't use the word painter on this show. No, I'm joking.
Okay, well, I don't.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I love
myself a painter after I got the job. I was like,
hey, painter.
I'm a painter.
Hey, painter. It's like I'm a drywall. Do you see paint on me? Get out of here.
And so when I chose my employer, I didn't really know what I was getting into. Before doing the whole program or anything, Tyler and I have actually been together since we were 15.
Okay.
So there was a point in time where I had helped my neighbor with a repair in his house. He was covering up nicotine stains and doing a lot of drywall repairs. And he had me work on his bead. And I sat there for like 2 hours just working on this bead, making it all pretty and perfect. Had no idea what I was doing. He just handed me some mud and a putty knife. And I'm like, okay, like, sure, I know what I'm doing. I'll make a pretty corner. And it was beautiful. And I said to him,
Tyler was 15 at that time. And just for a little background, Tyler is your boyfriend. Okay, so Tyler is the boyfriend. Tyler was doing drywall at 15?
No.
Okay, you got together at 15.
Yes.
Tyler got into drywall later. How old are you at the time when you go and work with Tyler a little bit that pertains to this story?
That was my neighbor. I was helping him out with a repair in his house.
Oh, okay.
And the reason I brought up Tyler is because after I had helped with that repair, I went to Ty and I was like, I think we should start a business and we should do repair work and we should cover up nicotine stains. And we had no idea what we were doing. We didn't know what we were talking about. We had this whole plan and I never went forward with that. But after I got into it for real, I always found that really crazy that both of us had at one time thought of this whole plan that we were going to get into this, kind of left it on the back of our minds and never thought of it again. And we ended up doing that exact thing.
Yeah, I call those seeds. Like there was something there, whether it was between you two or some type of kinetic energy that was like, oh, well, maybe we're meant to be together and we're going to do this thing. That's cool. And I believe in all that weird, foo-foo stuff.
Me too. A lot of the things, like you'll hear me say it all the time. It was totally meant to be and everything happens for a reason. And I really believe that because the way that things fit together, there's no other explanation for it. It's just meant to be.
Okay, so let's go back to the planning and counseling and how you actually pushed through that program to find drywall.
Yeah, so the program, it was very up and down. I mean, you'd think that you go into it and you know what you're going to do and you go through the whole program and you have one goal, but during the program, you're learning all these new things about yourself. And you're like questioning what you actually went into it, thinking that you'd come out of it with. I went into it being like, I'm going to be a carpenter.
Okay.
And I don't think that I would have actually stuck with that job. As much as I can cut bead and measure it beautifully, big saws and stuff, like I may fit in that stereotype that's like women can't use power tools. I don't like them. I don't like them at all. Maybe if somebody real skilled was going to show me how to use them, but
So did they give you some options when you were in the program, some direction or testing that would send you in the right direction?
Yeah, it was a little bit confusing. I didn't really understand how it was going to work. Like, I was like, what are you giving me these personality tests for? Like, am I just sitting here answering these silly questions? And I didn't understand, but it ended up being really helpful because the little things that um, they asked you, and I couldn't think of a question off the top of my head, but they brought up deeper answers in your head, and you learn a little bit about the way that you think and what you do look for in a job and in a career, and the
Okay.
values that you place on your life, and what you the values you place on your experience, whether
Yeah.
you are a risk taker or not so much a risk taker. Like, we went through so many different things, and they had a lot of employers come in and um, talk about how they got into the trade and
Okay.
what they look for in an employee, or what they would look for in somebody who they're interviewing. And a lot of them
Okay.
said, like, somebody had just come to me, walked in my office, no scheduled interview, no nothing, and said, like, I'm eager to learn, like, I'm willing to try my best and do my hardest, and I really have a passion for this trade. How can I be of help to you? Like, is there anything that I can do? Is there any job that you can give me? That would, they all said, like, that would be the person they likely hire over somebody who just drops off their resume and, doesn't follow up,
Okay.
doesn't do anything. And that really kind of opened my eyes to, okay, wait a second. These are people. Like, they want people working for people. Like, this isn't just so serious. It doesn't have to be so serious and so structured. Like,
Yeah.
people are more open when they can hear that you have the same passions that they do, or can
Yeah.
connect to you in ways that you aren't going to be able to connect to on a resume. Like, you can't learn about a person by reading their resume.
Right.
So that kind of gave me a little bit of confidence to get out of my comfort zone and
Okay.
have the courage to reach out to people. And
Okay. Yeah, but still, like, how did you intrinsically know? Was it from the seed of the nicotine stain job that you were like, I'm gonna go do that drywall? I played with drywall that one time, and it was very fun. And I'm did you go to drywall first, or did you like go because you could have done plumbing, you could have done electrical, you could have done carpentry, you could have done masonry.
yeah, the like I said, the personality test kind of led me to artistry, painter, uh
Okay. Okay.
interior designer, that area of career would be the best suited for my personality type and who I am and what my values are.
Okay.
So from there, when they asked, look up some local businesses that you'd like to work with, at the time, it was just, this is an opportunity to get a job. This wasn't, I'm going to go in and I'm going to be a drywaller. I'm going to do this. I'm going to have this whole career.
Okay.
And I ended up choosing, I think it was 2 or 3, and I had 2 interviews in one day.
Okay.
One was with an upholstery business
Ooh.
downtown,
Okay.
and they, refinish furniture.
Yeah. So you had a couple different
So,
interviews. You had a couple different interviews, upholster, and then
right. And then it was Muddy Girl. And the funny
Muddy
thing about
Girl. Amber
Muddy Girl, yes, Amber McRae,
McRae.
um, is before I had started the program, my mom said to me, she's like, well, if you want to get into the trade, like, I know this girl that lives down the street from me. Her name's Amber. Like, you should just go talk to Amber. Now, my mom didn't really give me much information on what Amber does. I don't think my mom really knows anything about what I do. She knows it looks nice in the end, but I was like, no, Mom, like, I'm going to see where this takes me. This is an
So
opportunity.
funny.
I want to take it.
Right under your nose. The
100%.
mom comes through again. Go talk to Muddy Girl. She's
Yeah.
she's playing in the mud all the time. She's a nice
She knew
girl. Go talk to
where I
her.
was headed. And it was funny enough that I had found Amber, and I had set up the interview with her, and then I thought of it. And I was like, wait a second, is this the woman that my mom was telling me about? So it was really funny, because, you know, my mom and Amber had known each other, and it kind of made a different dynamic between me and Amber. We became really good friends.
Yeah.
So they set up the interview, and she came in, and I sat down with her, and she was like, so are you able to start Monday? And I was like,
Yeah. She was like, you're a girl, I'm a girl, let's do this.
yeah. And she always said, that my name was Faith, and she needed Faith at that time. Like, the business needed an employee, and it was her first employee, and she was worried about hiring for the first time. And so when she seen my name and how eager I was when she met me, and, you know, that I was excited to be a painter. Like I said, I went home and jumped around like, I'm a painter. Look at me. Is
Amber does probably both though. She's a finisher and painter.
Yeah. So at the time, I was really just thinking about the painting. I didn't know much about the mudding. Again, I had forgotten about that time that I helped my neighbor, and Tyler and I had thought of a whole business plan. Okay. So I didn't really know what I was getting into. Like, when I read her business name and it said taping, painting, plastering, I was like, taping, like, you mean taping before painting? Like, I didn't know what taping was. And then I think I have a video of it on my Instagram, actually, of the first day I held my hawk and was taping a crack in a plaster home with Amber. And you can tell I don't know what I'm doing.
You can send me the video too. I could splice it in right here for the YouTube page, because this will go, people will watch on YouTube. Some people like to watch the interview. Amber, this is like a match made in heaven. Of course, it's like a thing that shows you that you're on the right path. So the first one was when you were covering up the nicotine stains. Maybe the seed was planted, but this would be another omen, is what they're called, an omen that lets you know that you're on the right path. I would consider this not only that your mom and like that weird connection, but like you were supposed to be kind of doing this. Not that you have to do it forever, but this is definitely part of your path. It's really cool.
And yeah, it felt like that from the moment I met Amber. Amber and I talked about that all the time, like both on her end and my end. It just felt meant to be in every way possible. We clicked immediately, you know, like there was one day that I just had the urge, like I was saying goodbye to her one day, and I just was like, you know what? I love you. Like, I'm so grateful for the relationship that we have, and I love you. And she said, I love you back. And so then, you know, that became a daily thing, and it was beautiful. Just such an uplifting experience. Like, I never thought I'd find that in a boss, in, you know, a coworker. We worked hand in hand. You know, she had other people come in and help every now and again, but full time, it was just me and her. So she taught me pretty much everything I know.
She was your mentor.
Yeah.
Okay. And where do we start? Faith starts on the job. Does she have you spotting nails and screws, or were you doing painting?
So the first day I started with her, we were actually covering up nicotine staining. And that day I remember, how is this happening right now? How am I here right now?
Oh, that's funny.
We ended up doing like, oh my goodness, it was like 4 or 5 coats of oil primer. It was just ridiculous staining.
They got some heavy smokers in Peterborough.
Yeah, it was a really old house. The downstairs apartment had to be completely ripped out because the nicotine was too much to cover up anyway. So yeah, it was pretty bad. But she had me start cutting in a closet, and I didn't have much residential painting experience, but I've always kind of been an artist. Like, not like super great at drawing pictures, but I'm very creative and I love painting. And
I bet.
So painting a straight line, that was nothing. I was like, I've got this.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's no worries here. So yeah, I started the first.
I think that same artistic nature, that intrinsic creative nature, caters to drywall finishing as well, and mud. Definitely.
Yes, and I 100% fell for the mud over the painting in every way. Like, my heart always is with the mud. I'd much rather do that. And
so there was a day when Amber like pulls out the mud and is like, okay, we're gonna do some mud today. What do you do? Do you remember that?
Very vaguely. Like I said, I have that video of me taping the plaster.
Okay.
It was a big crack in the plaster, and but I don't really remember. I remember looking at the mud and being like, it looks good. Like, it looks yummy.
Yeah.
Don't you want to eat that? It looks like, cake batter.
Soft serve.
I was fascinated by everything that she had showed me and everything that I was seeing. Like, I just wanted to play with it. I just wanted to spend all day playing with the mud. I ended up, being like, Mom, you got holes I can fix in your house? Like, I'm going to come over and I'm going to fix all these holes. Immediately, I fell for it. That first day I was taping, and I think that was just the job that we were on. It was plaster repair, so there was no nail holes to fill or outlets to coat. But I remember when we first did our big drywall job, she had me learning screws and coating outlets.
And unbeknownst to Faith, Tyler is on a parallel path somewhere else learning drywall?
Yeah. So I eventually got into the program as well.
Okay.
After I did, because it was such a great foot in the door to a real career in the trades. Once he had seen what I had found with Amber and what good it had done for me, he was like, hey, wait, can I get into this program? Like, I want to get further into the trades, because he had worked for like lots of different companies. He did siding, lots of general labor, tons of stuff here and there. So he really had a well-rounded understanding of all these little things.
You inspired Tyler.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Tyler, really, how old's Tyler's 22? 20 also? Okay.
Yes. He got into that. He got into an insurance company where he built some great connections and was a well-valued worker. The company kind of went under. I don't want to share any names because it went under.
He found his way to drywall through that program as well. Different company maybe, or did he come and start working for Amber? Or
different company? Yeah. Okay.
He liked mud too.
Yes, he did. Yeah. We were coming home and we had so much to talk about, and like everything that we were learning, and so it just became like more the urge, like, well, we want to do this together. Like, why are we separated? Why aren't we doing this together if we're both doing the same thing? So you guys are kindred spirits. Yeah.
You're drywall kindred spirits.
Towards that, I definitely felt as though, I really wanted to stay loyal to Amber because we had just become so close. And I was like, I'm not ready to leave Amber to work with you.
Why wouldn't maybe you suggest to Amber that Tyler come and work with Amber, or were you like, that's my territory, Tyler, you can go find your own deal, I'm with Amber, but just out of curiosity?
Well, he did at one point come and work for Amber. So yes, when that company kind of went under, Tyler, he was like, I don't know, I'm just gonna like start my own business, or I don't know, like, because he didn't really want to work for somebody else again. Like he knew what he was doing, and he was like, okay, like what am I gonna do now? And I was like, well, Amber and I are doing this really huge job that we need help on. Like, why don't you come help us?
Okay.
And so Amber, very kindly was like, yeah, I mean, we need the help, so it'd be great to have his extra hands. And so we spent, I think he was with us for 6 to 8 months, something like that. And then he was like, okay, like, I want to do my own thing. Like, I think I've got this now. Like, I think I can conquer this. Like, I can do this.
And stay tuned for part 2. Faith and Tyler story when we have Tyler on the show to tell his side of this dynamic duo.
Yes, he did say, he was like, oh, I could never do a podcast. He was like, that's so scary. I'm like, don't tell me that. I'm already scared enough.
I'll talk to him, Faith.
But yeah,
We'll
you
get
can
him.
try
We'll
to
get him.
convince him. Might work. He might do it.
Maybe after he listens to this one, maybe we'll joggle him a little bit. It's not too bad, right? No big deal.
No, I'll inspire him again.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. So he works with you and Amber for several months. He's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to throw my hat in, start my own business. I'm going to be like a sub, maybe hustle my own work, go help other people. And he starts doing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he, now again, that's totally his story to tell you, but he built a lot of great connections.
Cool.
You're right. He did start subbing, for a couple different people in the beginning and was making decent money. But still,
sorry, this is important too, because you guys end up coming together. Now you work together. So, hence his getting a little background on his story too.
Yes. He built some great connections, and then one of the guys he worked with, he was a project manager at the last company that went under, reached out to him and was like, hey, I'm working for this new company and like I can see that you're doing pretty good. Do you want to do some work for us? And I'll give you a chance, and then we can go from there. And so since then, like, he's been getting pretty steady work from this one insurance company. And we built a great friendship with that project manager. So a few other, side things here and there that aren't so much full-time, but a lot of the full-time work, insurance needs people all the time. So
yeah,
it's pretty consistent.
And they pay well. They can pay well.
They do, yeah.
Okay, so when you leave Amber to go over to Tyler, is your finishing skill at that point rounded enough? Are you running all the tools? Are you still hand finishing? Does Tyler run the tools? Do you guys hand finish, or do you run the tools? How does that work?
So the only semi-automatic machines I use would be the flusher system, the pump or the tube and the flusher. Which I can run those no problem.
No boxes?
No, not yet. I haven't had a chance to try them. But everything, yes, it's all hand finished.
Okay.
And yeah, I was at a level where Amber was leaving me on full jobs by myself. Anything that I have on Instagram, like, I'm never taking credit for a job that Amber and I did together. Those are all
whatever,
stuff that I was doing 100% by myself. She'd be on another job. And once I got to that level, I was like, okay, like, if I can be on a job by myself now, does that mean that I can start a business? So it felt, I can do this on my own now. If I'm here by myself, I can do this. It's just about, getting the client base and talking to the customer. You
both are really young. I mean, compared to me, like, I wouldn't even think about doing that until I was like, 28 or whatever. I mean, you're really young to do that, in my opinion.
Yes, I get that a lot.
I'm impressed. I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
Cool. So, but does Amber run the tools?
She runs the same as me, the tube and flusher. Okay. I think she recently just got a box. Since I've been gone, she started trying out the boxes. But yeah, I learned by hand, and I love it that way. I mean, I put a lot of soul into what I do. I really like to make it perfect.
Pro tip, learn the box. It's another comfort zone thing. Just do it.
Well, I'd like to when we when we have the money to invest in that. We just invested in a Merca, so that was like the one thing I was like, we need this.
The sander.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You like it?
Love it.
Very cool. And what tools, semi-automatic tools, are you using? What brand?
So I love Can-Am's tools. If we
Okay.
had the money when we started the job, it was that big job we did out in Fenland Falls when I started working for Ty after moving on from Amber. I was like, there's no way we're doing this 200 board house with hand taping the corners. Like, we need to get some kind of tool for this. I mean,
good for you.
You know, it's worth it, trust me. And he was like, okay, like we'll keep our eye out, we'll look out. So we were going to order the kit, but you know, it's pricey. It is worth it. 100% worth it. Like, one job will pay it off, no problem. But when you're starting a job and you need it right then, right there, you're like, oh my God, that's a big expense.
It's a chunk. It's a chunk. That's an investment. It's a chunk out of that first job, but it's a good investment.
Yeah, 100%. So we actually went to a pawn shop for a drill. I needed a drill, and we had found a good deal, and we stopped in, and we were about to leave, and Ty, out of the corner of his eye, he sees the Columbia tube, and he was like, wait a sec, how much is that? And he got them to pull them out, and they had like a bunch of different flushers, and it was in pretty great condition, like
cool,
nothing too bad. So you know, I'm standing there like trying not to be all excited about it and tell them how much it's worth. So he was like, how much do you think? Like, I was like, could we like maybe do like 200?
Totally.
Like, yeah, you can take it for 200. So we got the tube and 2 flushers, which is all Columbia. And then we got the corner pump head. The only things we were missing was the flusher pole and the flathead applicator. So then we had kept our eye out further, didn't end up finding one. I tried, I had bought the adapter for my sander head. I thought that the threads would fit, and they were a bit too small. So that was like a big, like, oh shit, like, that's not gonna work the way we thought it would. We used that for one day. I had taped it on there, and I was like, well, we're gonna make it work because we're gonna have to order something else now. And then we ended up getting the Can-Am flusher pole.
You bought that new?
Yes. Yeah, brand new.
Where'd you buy that from?
CSR. I ordered it on Amazon, which is, I know, a little bit of a sly move. Like, I probably should have went directly to their account, but I could get it in a day on Amazon with Prime. So I was like, well, at least it's from their store. They still get, you know, they still get something from it.
Oh yeah.
I don't love using Amazon just because they don't deserve all the money that they make.
No, well, that's debatable, but yeah, they are corporate monsters. You know what's funny about that? I see a lot of videos because I'm into entrepreneurialism and all that. I see a lot of those videos, man, where Jeff Bezos walking around his little office and he's like, welcome to Amazon. He's got a full head of hair and he's like young and he's like, my desk is here. We got a fax machine and a cord coming in. Like, he started from nothing.
Yeah, no, he's a genius.
Yeah.
I wish I had done it for sure. I think it better said, I would rather support the smaller businesses.
Yes.
Even CSR is, you know, big, but not as big as Amazon. So rather support them.
Cool.
But yeah, that's where that came from. And then we just recently got the flathead applicator.
Okay. And you tape with, are you a slot box duo?
No.
Oh man, I was hoping you guys were slot boxers. Damn it. We've had a few on the show. I'm swaying. My opinion on the slot box keeps swaying. The Gilbert taping does slot box. I just found out.
I think if you do it right, I think it can be good for sure. But I have fixed lots of DIYers slot box jobs, and they don't wipe their tape out. It just gets left all sloppy.
Beautiful.
So
Totally
against that.
So you guys, it's by hand? You got a little roll holder? You put the mud on?
Use the holder. I'm totally for the holder. I'm like, I need my holder. Like that's important,
Yeah.
especially when you're moving and you're getting up and down and it's right there. He's like,
What
no,
a,
I'm just gonna put it on the floor.
what about the banjo though? I mean, if I had my choice between hand finishing taping and banjo, the banjo's pretty quick, man, and it puts it on at the same time.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. We did try out the banjo one day.
Okay.
But because we used Fibofuse for everything, it
Oh.
really didn't go well. It was just a mess. We were ripping it. We were wasting mud and tape. And we were like, you know what? With all of this chaos that's happening, it's just faster that we just hand tape it. And we ended up putting the thing away and not really going back. We don't do too many big jobs like those last two. I don't have any photos posted of Port Hope, but Fenland and we did Port Hope. We're both 2-story homes.
Okay.
And those, I think, were the biggest jobs that Ty's ever done.
Beautiful. Good. You're growing.
So yeah, so it's starting to get time that we're investing in some bigger and better tools, but
yeah,
still working on it.
And maybe one day you'll graduate to the bazooka.
Yes, we would. Yes, I would love to have one of those.
Yeah, they're cool.
Like
they're cool. I was thrusted into it in the union when I was an apprentice. Like I saw these dudes running the tools in the bazooka, and I was just like, "Oh, that's the way you do it." There was never, and then I went down south. I moved, and then they were all hand finishing, and I was like, why aren't you guys using the tools?
Yeah,
like,
if that would be the first thing I see, and I'd be questioning the same thing, like what's going on? Are you just
like Amber would have showed you, she would have showed you how to run the bazooka. You'd be like, oh, the first thing we're buying, Tyler, is a bazooka.
Right. And those exactly. I mean, that's exactly what happened with the Can-Am, or I guess it's the pump set because it's all these mixtures of all the brands, and the Merca. Like once I've used them, there's no going back. It's like how, I mean, I know how to do it. I love coating corners by hand. It's very satisfying, but I don't want to do a whole thing like that.
No.
And same with the Merca. There was a very short period of time that Amber and I were pole sanding, and then we had gotten a job removing, I think it was 2 or 3 popcorn ceilings, and so she ordered the Merca. And I couldn't go back after that. I was like, I'm never again. This thing's awesome.
Seems pretty efficient. I've coated over several popcorn ceilings because I do the fresco harmony, which is weird in its own right, just to do that. I've been doing it for 20 years, but like is that a Trimtex cup?
It is.
That's a Yeti Trimtex cup. Let's have a look. How the fuck did you get a Yeti Trimtex cup?
Oh, because I'm very, very special. No.
Yeah. Well, that goes without saying.
I feel very special. I do. While I was working for Amber, Trimtex had sent her cups and some shirts. She was interviewed by Trimtex for International Women's Day. I was not part of the interview, but they had sent me some cool merch, so that was very nice of them.
Nice. Yeah, but you got to be on the Drywall Podcast, which is much better.
Cooler.
Yeah.
Way cooler.
Yeah, Trimtex, they have the minute, and if you go back to the episode 3 of the Drywall Podcast, I interviewed Joe Koenig with Trimtex.
Oh yeah.
That's a good one. It's really funny.
I will have to watch it then.
Yeah, or listen. We're on Spotify, so you can listen on Spotify.
That's what I was listening on. I don't use it for really anything else because I don't pay for it, but perfect for that.
Yeah, totally. Throw it on next time you and Tyler are on a job. There's a bunch of fun episodes. Wolfgang with Can-Am. A lot of great interviews now so far. But very cool. So you and Tyler now, you're still carving out your methods and maybe getting new tools all the time. Where do you stand, or you and Tyler, on like the social media, this whole influencer movement where people are getting free stuff, they're making all these cool videos? Teek's like a freaking genius at making videos. I'm not quite there. I can make an okay video, but I'm definitely not female and I'm not as cool as a lot of the other people.
I'd say you're pretty cool. You're
But
more educational, so some people don't really like to sit there and learn. They just want to see the satisfying mud. But for the
right.
ones, are in the trade, I mean, your videos, I'm scrolling and I'm watching and I'll watch it
Oh,
again.
thanks. Thank you. Oh, okay, cool. Cool. It's interesting. I think it's interesting content. I don't have
Yeah,
200,000 followers, in other words.
but you
Where
don't
you
need
guys,
that. I
you
mean,
don't, quality, not quantity, right? You don't have like hundreds of thousands of followers. Is that something you aspire to have? Where are you guys at with the social media thing?
well, when I started, it was really never like have any kind of influence. It was just I was so excited about what I could create and the end result that I was seeing. I was like I don't have enough people to show this and go, hey look, like I want to put this
Yeah.
stuff. So
Okay.
I started posting my work, and the feedback that I got back from that, it just made it so much easier. I was like, hey, people are liking what I'm
Yeah.
posting,
Yeah.
and they're interested. And at first I thought, all these people that follow me from high school and stuff, like they're going to unfollow me. They're not going to care about what I'm posting. And that didn't happen. And some of my friends,
Of course
they're
not.
interested. And my best friend, Loretta, she's always supporting me. She's like, you're killing it. And I'm like, you're awesome. You don't even know what I'm doing. And you're still like super supportive.
Yeah. Shout out to
So
Loretta.
yeah, she'll like that one. Um, and then when I was with Amber, we had went to CSR Building Supplies grand opening in Barrie, and I met
Okay.
Sean with Broly's dad, and I met Kayla, the taping queen, and
Yeah.
Sean Fawcett, and Nathan's Drywall, and all these great people. I met Bernie Mitchell, and he spent some
Uh-huh.
time with me, teaching me how to make little trees with mud, and
Yeah.
everything was just so surreal and amazing. And I was like, I have to be a part of this. Like, I need to be in this community. So it's never really been about the followers. It's just about the community that's created around Drywall, the followers
Beautiful.
and the stuff that comes from content creation. And, maybe one day I end up making money from that. That's just a bonus because I'm already doing it just because it's fun and I like
Okay.
doing it.
And just from my own personal standpoint, that is a really smart way to look at it. You just do the content, you create the stuff because you enjoy it. Try not to you make money doing drywall, but try not to put so much emphasis on followers. I mean, I'm joking about, followers and things like that. I do like to get a lot of likes. I'm just like anybody. I
Oh, it's
look at
exciting.
I look at
Of
the
course.
posts. I got a lot of likes. Oh, this post got more likes than that post. Why is that? That's interesting to me. But
Yeah.
it's important just to post and show and tell your story, just like you're doing here on the podcast. Like tell your story on your social media page, the way you want to tell it. Maybe it's a a page with you and Tyler. Triple T taping. He just branched out on his own with his own page, but he had, Triple T taping was their own page for a while. Those guys are super cool. Do you and Tyler don't share a page though? Does Tyler have a page?
He does. Yeah, it's under Fine
Okay.
Touch Taping. It's the business's
Okay.
account.
Okay.
He was never really into the whole posting thing. I was actually the one when I started working with him. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start you an Instagram because I think you
Okay.
need to have some marketing. Like he's not on Google. He just goes off of word of mouth and his business
Yeah.
cards and making good connections. So I'm like, well, why don't you post your work and see what you can get from Instagram, even if it's
Yeah.
just learning from other people or advice or whatever it may be that comes from it. It's great to have the account. So
Yeah.
I started posting for him, and now
Okay.
he's taken that over. But
Good.
he doesn't really put as much. It's not really his thing. He's like,
Okay.
I don't really get into it. But for me, I really enjoy editing the videos and making the
Good.
videos and watching
Yeah.
them.
It's pretty fun. What do you edit in?
I use an app called InShot. It's just an app on my
Okay.
iPhone. Easy to find, free to use.
Okay.
Had no issues with it. It's the best one I've found.
Okay. All right. In shot. And then, so there's two pages, basically fine touch taping and Faith Baylis.
Faith Baylis finishings, yes.
Finishing. Okay.
Yeah.
And you guys are on Instagram. I don't know that I follow fine touch taping yet. It seems like you don't have very many posts yet. You're just getting into it. Am I wrong?
Yeah. So I think I really started posting after the grand opening in Barrie.
Okay.
And there's like lots of periods of time
Okay.
that I really wasn't making content, really wasn't paying attention, jobs on the go, and you're just not thinking about it. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So maybe you went to Barrie and you saw some of these other ballers. Meg was there, I think. Meg's Drywall. These other influential women who are crushing it on social media. And you were like, hey, man, I'm going to jump in the game. We got this. And that also does build community too, I might add. But very cool. So cool.
Yeah. CSR, I think just before the grand opening, it was International Women's Day. And so they had featured Amber and I. And once my name was kind of out there, I was like, okay, well, if people know my name, I want them to see what I can do. So I think that's where it stemmed. And then, being at the grand opening and meeting everybody, I was like, okay, like this is a normal thing to do. Nobody's going to think that I'm weird for sharing my work. And this could be really awesome, and there could be a lot of opportunities that come out of it. So why not? What's the harm?
Yeah. And it's niche and it's inspiring, and people do want to see, what tools you're using and your work and things like that. So it's very cool. Just like I think people want to hear like all these people's stories. Like it's interesting. Your story's interesting to me. It's very cool. It's short. We'll see where you go. But it's a short story. When you're only 20 in the trade, you're like, you guys are still like, I think, and stop me if I'm wrong, because there's also down here, there's texture. Like, I didn't really learn texture until I moved to Colorado. I was in Colorado for 3 years. We were finishing houses. Those dudes were all using banjos. But I got into texture, and that led to fresco harmony, because we were doing a full wall cover with a pool trowel. So texture is a whole thing down here that you guys don't do very often up there.
No.
And it's cool. Also, it's a cool thing. People can look down their nose at texture all they want, but it's pretty fun, and it's very cool.
Yeah, no, I'd really love to get more into it. I've tried like little things on my own on canvas, which doesn't work out because once the canvas moves, it just crumbles away. But but just playing with the mud, and so I watched so many videos of other people doing texture.
Yeah,
Pam does a lot of it. Like his ceilings, they're gorgeous.
Yeah, they're so pretty. Yeah,
it's just it's artwork, really. To be able to do that, it's something.
And you can do it. Anybody can do it. You said yourself, you're like, you have this artistic nature. There's ways you can do it, but you can get into doing, I started out doing colored joint compound art, 3-dimensional art on pieces of sheetrock. It's that easy. You can take just regular white mud like Bernie does, and it adheres beautifully to regular sheetrock, and you can cut boards of sheetrock and just start playing around. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've always wanted to really get into it when I have time. It's just finding the time when you're just at home. There's so many other things to take care of.
Yeah.
And especially kind of getting into being an adult and adulting life. So many things to think about that it's like, oh, I want to try all these new things. I have all these hobbies that I want to try out, see if I can pick up on this stuff. And
it sucks for the younger generation coming up now, because it is a lot harder now. It's ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. They say that there's so many jobs out there and whatnot, and like I can tell you, when I was looking for minimum wage jobs, you don't hear anything back. Like nobody's able to make the money that we need to be able to make to live.
Correct. That
It sucks.
wasn't the case. Like I could vagabond around and be a hippie and like make a few bucks here and there, but it wasn't until I started jumped in the union and got on a trade that I made decent money enough to like,
Yeah.
you
Live.
know, yeah, share rent with somebody and afford food and to party and go
Yeah.
be a heathen myself. I had some heathen
Which
years.
really, those should be the basics. We should all be able to do those. And it sucks that
Yeah.
not everybody has the means to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, when I was your age, I vagabonded around. I lived in Arizona. And once I had the skilled trade, I figured out I could travel anywhere and just go do like drywall. I could jump on with a drywall crew, which is
That's
another
cool.
another
Yeah.
cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Possibilities with it are endless. And I think that's why I really have decided that, this is something that I want to continue with for a really long time because there's just so many ways you can go. There's so many paths you could take.
Yeah.
It's not just one thing.
Yeah.
Even in the day-to-day work that we have now, it's constantly changing. You're never on the same job doing the same thing. It's always finding challenges and having to find solutions. So it's really fun.
I'm proud of both of you, man. It's really impressive. Faith, Baylis,
Well,
Peterborough.
thank you.
Well, I do a pearl of wisdom on every episode. So if you could bestow a pearl of wisdom onto the drywall community.
I guess we'll circle back to with what we started with is that, just don't let your own fears stop you from taking the opportunities that present themselves and, just do it. Even if you're scared to do it, just jump in and take it. And wherever it takes you, let it happen. Just go with the flow and yeah, really just don't let your fears stop you from what you want to do.
Kind of like the podcast too, right?
Yeah.
Like so you were sort of scared to do Brawley's and now hopefully you have the confidence to do Sean's podcast too because he is a lot of fun to talk to and it's pretty much just as simple as this one.
Yeah. Well, and I've met Sean too, so we've spoke face to face, and yeah, I don't know why I was so nervous. I don't know what's so scary about it, but
it's interesting. It's the unknown. It's the unknown, and it's okay. It's okay to be scared, and it's okay to push through that fear. It's a fantastic pearl of wisdom, and I don't think we go anywhere. There's a saying, the world is a vast book. Those who never stray from home read only a page. There's a lot of truth to that. Like,
yeah, that's a very good way to put it.
Cam had never been on an airplane. He came down to Albuquerque and did a fresco harmony training. He was down here for 2 weeks. He had never been on an airplane.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Yeah. That's a big step to take.
And now he's all over he's going up to Canada and he's over here and he's over there and he just went to Florida and everybody's hooking up and we're having fun. And so I'm trying to encourage a lot of people. We're going to be doing a training in Toronto at CSR. That's going to happen. We're going to have more information about that coming out. So hopefully we'll see you and Tyler and Amber.
I don't know. It was a sad goodbye. It was
a sad goodbye. Okay. Thank you so much for being on the Drywall Podcast today. What a great story. It was really cool.
Thank you for having me. And it was really cool to be here. And I'm glad that I did it. I'm glad that I pushed past and just said yes. I questioned myself yesterday. I was like, what the heck did I say yes to? Like, why did I do that? I'm so scared. But now that I've done it, I'm like, what was I scared about? So
I think it's tougher for women too. You got to watch out for creepers and you got to watch out for weirdos. And I mean, it's been I'm 47. It's been coming to light more for me, the challenges that women have in society, like on the whole, like just walking down the fucking street, as men, like we don't, if you're like an honest, like good guy or whatever, like you don't really consider that it's like scary to walk out to your car sometimes at night. We don't
Yeah.
consider that. And that's something that women deal with on a daily basis. And that like trickles down into like construction, women in the workforce in general, sports, everything. So there's that. So I give you a lot of props for having the courage to come on here, just like I give props to everybody that has the courage to come on the Drywall Podcast. We want to hear your stories. If I call you up and ask you, man, try to dig down and find the courage. And specifically, I'm talking to you, Ben Cole with GWI. He's the owner of GWI in England, in Swindon, England. Super cool guy. He was almost going to come on a couple times, but he's gotten like cold feet a couple times, but I keep trying to like get him on. He's like, I just can't do it, Nick. I just like, it's not the right time. Yeah, but we'll get it.
No, I never thought I would. I didn't. I have never liked to talk on camera, and that's why you don't really see any of my voice in my videos. But,
yeah, it's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard.
It's not so bad. It's just a conversation.
It's a directed conversation about your story, and it's important. And you're important, and I'm glad you came on. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
All right, Faith. We'll talk soon. Say hi to Tyler for me, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the future.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, take care, Nick.
All right, bye. Shout out to Faith for being with us on the Drywall Podcast today. It's not easy to come on, and we appreciate your time and your courage. Have questions or concerns for me about the Drywall Podcast? Maybe you heard something that really offended you and you want to tell me about it. Or maybe you really enjoy the podcast and you want to tell me about it. Or maybe you want to try Fresco Harmony or something like that. You can reach out to me directly at info@frescoharmony.com or give me a call. I, like so many others, have my phone on me 24/7, and I try to answer calls when I get them. 505-400-9313. Thank you so much for joining Faith and me on the Drywall Podcast today. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. And remember, keep drywalling.